Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of The Rundown with Ramon. Today, we're going to talk to Paul Bramson about the power of first impressions. He probably will say it a little different than me, but that's the essence of what we're going to unpack today. Why first impressions matter, why they're so important, why I cleaned up my background even before I talked to Paul. He's the power of first impressions. I wanted to make sure I left the first.
It was positive. It was positive.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, welcome to The Rundown with Ramon. Paul, tell us a bit who you are today. And if you don't mind, as part of that introduction of you for my audience, just go back, over the last few years, what brought you here. So feel free to take your time and just say hello and unpack who you are today and what brought you here.
So you gave me 8 hours to do this, correct, Ramon?
Go for it, brother.
I'll be concise because I value concise. So today, Paul Bramson, keynote speaking, master trainer, sales, leadership, communication. We get to work with global companies and just really brand name, honorable types of audiences to get them to up-level or elevate their selling, leadership, communication skills. That's what we do today. Started back, I'm going on my 24th anniversary this year, 24 years. I was a boy when I started, Ramon.
I'm sure you're 2 years old, drooling.
Yeah. So it started 24 years ago. It's again, working with all of these global companies through training. What's really where it's evolved to is I'm doing more keynote than I ever have. I'm incredibly passionate about the keynote, the big audiences, getting them all fired up. So that's what we're focused on. And that's what I'm focused on now.
I love it. Paul, just the obvious question, maybe it's not obvious, but obvious to me, before we dive into this aspect of first impressions, why do these bigger brands need you, Paul? I would think that anybody being paid $500,000, $3 million. I don't know what your clients make. They make a lot of money. You can tell them I can carry their bags for them, but why would they need you? You would think the head of a Tesla, Coke, Nike, McDonald's, I'm just mentioning big brands we all know.
Sure.
You would think that their executives, they've been there, done that. Don't they know this already, Paul?
So this is a very astute Ramon. Love this question. Now, if you asked me 10, 15, 20 years ago, the answer is slightly different now with the newer generation coming in because the newer generation loves the development. And if they don't feel like they're getting that, they go to different places where they can get that elevation of their skill set. When you take a look, so for your question, what they're realizing is people get rusty.
Fair enough.
Especially, think about pre-COVID. I can't believe we're talking about COVID again. It seems so long ago, but
it was a big defining moment though, right? So it's okay. It was a defining moment all of our lives. Go ahead.
It was a huge, probably for you and I, for sure, and for many others. People's skills get rusty, and what they're noticing is that they need a refinement, a honing, a polishing. So if they're not getting the results that they need, typically it's a reactive decision, not always proactive. Hey, we need them to be better. We have, by the way, getting people sales conferences, leadership conferences, we're pulling them back to face-to-face. Let's elevate what they have. So the reason why they're doing is they want them, people recognize the need to be better, especially with the speed of business today.
I love it. So Paul, let's dive right into it. Paul, what are some of the things, you lead the conversation. I'm pretending I'm leading it, but Paul, what are some of the things you say in a keynote, you say to people? I'm sure you've talked about this topic. What do we need to know, Paul? I'll follow you. Set the stage for us.
So the big one is the connecting like a pro. This is the most popular one right now. Certainly doing leadership keynotes, sales keynotes, but the other one is the reading the room is another my
favorite.
Reading the room. Don't even get me started on this, Ramon. Everybody needs this.
Yeah.
The connecting piece has been the most popular in terms of how can we communicate in a way that makes people want to be motivated to be around you versus demotivated? How can we discern or glean how somebody is built so I can pivot to you to better resonate with you? The challenge that people run into, Ramon, is we communicate from our own, I call them underlying needs, our own styles. And unfortunately, that doesn't always resonate with people. So I get in there, by the way, I have them do an assessment before they walk in. So they already know what their underlying need is. So there's a little bit of a buzz going on. And I teach them about the characteristic of an underlying need. And I teach them how to use words and phrases to get people to open up to want to be around you.
And can you give me a for example on that? I'm sure that depends. The for example can have 20 different for examples, but give me one or two things that are common-ish, like Ramon, for example.
For example, so I'm actually trying to discern your underlying need. And there's 4 of them, by the way. Need to be liked, need to be safe, need to be right, need to look good. Now
Mm.
you're one of two I've already discerned. So I think you either need to be liked or need to look good.
Okay.
By the way, they're all very positive. Not one is not better than the other. I bet you value relationships. I have a side note. And I also think you value your brand. Fair or not fair?
Fair enough, fair. And I'll tell you about the need to be liked, Paul. That is a big thing for me. And again, I like you said there's no judgment, but I'll just, if I may, just
No.
deviate and remind me
Please,
where we were. I get
please,
sidetracked very easily.
please, let's
But
do it.
the
I
thing
want to
about
hear
need
your
to be
thoughts on
liked,
this.
I'm the type of person, I guess it's, and again, you're the expert, so help me unpack what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Do it.
I
Let's
don't
do it.
mind if you hate me, especially if I know why, doesn't bother me, screw you, I can move on.
Yeah.
If they get, but like, it bothers me that lady at church who's angry at me and I heard she's angry because she felt I passed her, that will eat me away all day. I'm the guy that'll buy chocolate chip cookies, a cupcake, and a brand new car, bring it to her house, and make sure that we're okay. Then I feel good. Does that
Are
make
you
sense?
upset because of how she thinks about you or how she feels about you?
See now, Paul, you
Meaning,
get deep. Wow.
well, hey, I'm going to
How
pull the
she
Dr. Phil if I
thinks
have
about
to.
me or how she feels about
So
me.
you just said to me, you
It's the
don't care
feeling.
if people hate you.
It's the feeling. I
It's a
think.
feeling.
I
By the way,
think.
if we left this conversation, would you be more, is it more important to you for people to like you or respect you?
Oh, Paul. See, well, now you're gonna have to teach me some of the definitions,
So
or
no,
ask me a few more questions.
so
Because
so so I'll throw this in when you were growing up in high
okay,
school. This is, by the way, this is faster. We can go on for hours. I don't have hours, but we're going to go on for hours
yeah.
with this. In high school, was it important for you as you grew? Was it important for you to be popular in certain
Hmm.
cliques, certain scenarios, or was it more important for you just to be liked by people?
I suspect to be liked. I suspect. Overall, I have been the popular guy.
I get that.
Have a
That's
high
the
energy.
personality in you. I
Okay, but
could
I'm
see
just
it.
trying to confess
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
can help me help
Yeah, yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
But I think it was more like because I could be quiet in a room too. I am a jokester and all that. But I think it's just to be like Ramon's a nice guy.
Yeah, you like to hear that.
Yeah,
So if I
yeah.
heard that, I'd be like, wait a minute, nice. I don't care about being nice. But no, and
I
I say
got
that
it.
respectfully,
I
but you just
understand.
hit it. The fact, so if somebody said, Paul, you're a nice guy, I'm like, I'm insulted.
I got it. I got
No,
it.
I'm not, you get that.
I know
But
what
for
you mean.
you,
Two
that would
different
feel good.
needs. I get it.
It's a two different underlying needs. So,
Yeah.
so the fact that I know that you are, by the way, there are primary and secondary. Your secondary might be look good, but so the fact that I know that you need to be liked, as an example, I'm going to use words and phrases that resonate with you.
Mm.
Like, by the way, I mean this when I say this. The minute we jumped up, you have an incredibly positive demeanor.
Thank you.
You make the energy in the room feel good. By the way,
Thank you.
if somebody says that to you, and I mean that authentically, I hope it
I
came
know you
across
do.
authentically. Does that make you feel good?
It does. It does.
So,
And Paul leads me. And then Paul, I want to. Can you help me
yeah,
recap where we're at for the audience?
for
I want
sure,
them to know what we're
for
doing
sure.
here. But Paul, it makes sense because I remember, I'm probably not going to cry right now, but this is how meaningful it is to me, Paul.
Yeah,
I remember my boss at that. See, at the United Nations,
yeah.
I could smell his smoky breath. He put his face
As a
next
side
to
note,
me. He put his face next to me, his thick French accent. His name was Jacques Fomeron, older
yeah,
gentleman by now. He had a
yeah,
heart attack and other issues. He put
yeah,
his hand on my shoulder.
yeah,
And we had some challenges in the office. And
yeah.
eventually my contract wasn't renewed there, not because of him, somebody else. So it was a
Sure.
dysfunctional office. But I remember he put his hand on my shoulder, his thick French accent. Ramon, I appreciate you.
Yeah. We talk about, there you go.
I was
Done.
done. I'll never
He's,
forget it.
and you'll never forget him,
Yeah.
how he made you feel
Yes.
by that statement.
Yeah.
So so I want to, and you asked me to recap
Yeah. To
where
help
we
the
are.
audience understand what we did, why it's
What
important, what it
Ramon
means
and
for
I are
them. Yeah.
talking about is connecting like a pro, which is understanding someone's underlying need. And there's four: need to be liked, safe, right, and look good. When you discern somebody's underlying need, lean it, understand it, you start to use words and phrases that they're more likely to be motivated versus be motivated.
Mm.
So Ramon's example about how he felt appreciated as a need to be liked, that's his primary underlying need, that you probably felt that in your gut in a good way.
Mm.
By the way, if he said to you, I'm disappointed in you, I bet you'd lose a lot of sleep over
It
that
ripped me
comment.
apart. It ripped me apart.
And by the way, just let's be clear, nobody loves to hear that, but it affects the underlying needs feel different. I'll give you an example. If I said to you, I'm disappointed in you, Ramon,
Mm.
that's going to, oh, why doesn't Paul like
Mhm.
me?
Yeah.
You know what a need to look good feels?
Mm.
Ready? Do you know who I am?
Mm.
That's so disrespectful. That's how I'll look good.
I appreciate. Okay, that's
By the
good.
way, I need to be right. They better be able to back that baby up.
Yes, yes. I
With
love it.
facts and details, and a need to be safe is I'm going to need to learn more about this to see if it checks the
Mm,
boxes.
mm,
So how think about, we're talking about professionally. How about
mhm,
your personal life? This
mhm.
transcends into both. It's
I love it.
fascinating subject matter. I love it. I could talk about it for hours.
Oh yeah, and we can. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll just have the rundown with Ramon for 8 hours. Paul Bramson,
I
one more time. Can you give us your website? Tell you who you serve. Repeat one more time who you are for those who may be just tuning
absolutely
in.
paulbramson.com, paulbramson.com. Certainly on LinkedIn, Paul Bramson.
I love it.
That's where
So
to find
Paul,
me.
get us back on track, Paul. We never were off track. Let's
Yeah.
keep the conversation
Yeah. Yeah.
going, Paul.
Yeah.
First impressions. What did the rundown with remote audience need to know? This group of small business owners, professionals, maybe they're in sales, maybe
Yeah.
they're not, but I know you can take this where you want it. Let's go on to a step 2 or 3. Let's keep going. What else do we need to know?
So I was watching The Equalizer, one of my favorite movies. Do you like? Come on, Denzel. I'm watching Equalizer 1, and there's a scene at the beginning where he walks into the bar, and there's the Russian contingency
Mm,
about he needs to have a conversation with them. And in that scene, he something is triggered in him where things start to slow down before he
mm,
does
mm.
his
The watch starts ticking and all those things.
watch starts ticking, everything slows down. He's reading the room, by the
Mm,
way.
mhm.
So when we talk about first impressions, are you the type of person that does that when you walk into a room? But this is also part of reading the room.
Mhm, mhm,
And are you focused on, okay, here are the people that are in front of me. What do I need to do to make a positive first
mhm,
impression?
mhm,
Am I smiling? Do I have positive energy? Am I coming across authentic? Am I somebody that knows how to have a conversation? Like, I am not loquacious, I'm not verbose, I
mhm,
don't talk incessantly. I'm able to engage, it's just like you and I can tell you're a skilled communicator, but
mhm,
not everyone's a skilled
mhm,
communicator. So if you're able to do those things with an audience, you're making a very strong first impression. Now remember, as a look good, I'm all about my impression. So I'm hyper sensitive to that. But I think you would too.
yes, yes.
I think
I
you would
love
too.
it.
So
So reading the room,
that,
and Paul, one thing I do
yeah,
well on that, I think I'd hope by God's grace I do it
yeah,
everywhere, but I think I do it well on stage. I mean, that's what you and I do for a living. So as a motivational speaker,
that's right.
event host, which is even different than motivational speaker, I'm in demand in that. And I'd like to think I do it very well, especially from stage. Whether I do it with my wife well or my kids, I don't know. But from stage, being paid, yes. And let me tell you something, Paul, that happened again. We're talking to Paul Bramson here. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. We're talking about first impressions. Definitely look him up. But may I tell you one thing I did, Paul, and can you reverse engineer that? What happened?
Please, please.
I was at my big event a few weeks ago. We had hundreds of people at my big event, Entrepreneurs Conference. Gentleman came to talk to me. Now, as I do all the time, Paul, let's say he's looking at me this way. I said, yes, please continue. Sure, I'll take a selfie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take a selfie. Paul, you would think I slapped him with cold water. This happened 3 or 4 times because I was being regular Ramon, and most of the people who are dialed in around me, I'm fast, got hundreds of people. People didn't expect me to focus just on them. Take a
Sure.
selfie while you're talking. While you're talking, I'm shaking your hand.
That's right.
After the fourth time, Paul, I could see this dude. He was a quieter type of person, not angry,
Sure.
but he could see something was wrong. I had to stop. I put my hands. I don't think I touched him, but I put my hands on his shoulder or something. I said, "Dude, forgive me. Please tell me how I can help you." He told me it, and he was fine. What happened there, Paul? Not about me reading the room, but just can you unpack that scenario of I
Oh,
read it wrong? I didn't see his need.
well,
That makes
I would
sense?
argue he read it wrong. I would argue he read it wrong. Think about this. You're the in a positive, respectful way,
Mm-hmm.
you're the center of attention.
Right.
People are looking for this happens all the times in
Right.
training and speaking. I'm tired. I don't want to talk to anybody, but yet they want to run up and talk to you. What I would argue, that person was not reading the room, not you. Now, you might have been able to gently say, hey, listen, I'd love to be able to talk to you, but as you can see, I got a fan
Right.
club.
Yes.
That's what
That's what it was.
might have
Yeah.
I said.
After my big event, and
But
hundreds of
I
people
would
were there.
I would argue it's not you, it was them.
I understand.
They couldn't read the room. I mean, Ramon, really, you're going to give them that attention when everybody is vying for your attention? So I would say it was nothing that you did; it was what they did. Now you get to decide how you want to
Sure.
handle. By the way, bravo for coming back to that. But I think you did them a favor, Kenny.
Probably the part about like, though, I could see he didn't like. Is that right, Paul? I could see he didn't like me.
100%. That's why it bothered you.
Yes. When I saw his face,
So you
like,
know what I would have done? By the way, this is exactly what you did when you saw his face. I would have said, DM me on LinkedIn. I'll get back to you. I would have. Now, you and I have different styles, but it bothered you that it bothered him.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be, this is Paul being candid.
Let's go, Paul.
I would have only said something because I didn't want it to affect my brand.
No, I understand. Sure.
That's a,
and we could have ended up on the same wavelength, you and I, but it's just how we handle it's different.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. But you have, so we can get into emotional intelligence here too. You have self-awareness where I would argue that person lacks self-awareness.
Got it.
I would argue.
So, Paul, is this the kind of thing, as we're talking about first impressions, and I know you have a body of work that could do more than that, 2 words there, but for the sake of this discussion, we're headlining it that. Is this what we're getting into, that you do train, you work with the big and or small brands?
Sure.
They're good people, decent people, maybe went to college, maybe didn't, their mothers trained them right, assuming, forget the worst of the worst. Yeah. But you're there to just remind them, hey, executive, you just finished the event, you got a line of 10 people, slow down. And this is the reminders for them. Is that what you're doing? Is that what we're teaching today?
These are, they're reminders, they're nuggets. There's an elevation in skill sets. I mean, we work with, and healthcare providers, biotech, pharma. We're talking about super smart intellectually. What we're focused on is the emotional intelligence piece, the EQ piece, where you're giving them helpful reminders. But it's more than just helpful reminders. You have to give them wording and perspective to get people to want to change or elevate, if that makes sense.
Talk about that more, Paul, that aspect of get them to want to change. And again, everybody, we're talking to Paul Bramson. Definitely, I always look small here at the little thing. It's an M and not an N. That's me. I'm kind of weird like that. Paul Bramson.
Right. I love it. I love it. I can't correct you because you need to be liked. You won't like it. But that actually goes through my mind.
Paul, please. I was asking. What was I saying? I was asking
how do you get people to want to change?
Oh, so before you do that, I want to say here goes back to the one to like. Do you know why I have RUH-MOAN? I didn't like people in the middle of the interview. If I'm being interviewed, so Raymond, where can we find you at? I'm just saying my name, Paul. RamonRay.com. The horror.
You will
the
never
look
correct
on their
them.
face.
You won't correct them though.
I didn't.
No,
you're right. I didn't.
Overtly.
I don't. But that's why I put that in there. So it's amazing, Paul, how you're reading how we're different styles. And people said, Ramon, why don't you correct them? No, we'll continue on, Paul.
Well, this is fascinating. That's exactly why you don't.
Yes.
So I went to your LinkedIn. I went to your website. I noticed you purposely. I would have said Raymond, candidly.
Most people do.
Without the Ramon. That's why I asked you in the very beginning.
You did.
But I do it because as a need to look good, I don't like to be corrected as a side note. But more importantly, I want my brand to be spot on. So I want to make you feel like, oh, Paul gets it. Paul did some research. But I know why you do it. I have somebody works very closely with me in my company. She spells her name out exactly. So people pronounce it exactly the same way.
And if they make a mistake, it's okay. We just sit in silence. But Paul, remind me again what I asked you. Why do people why do they want to change? What causes them to want to change? Talk about that, Paul.
This gets interesting. So this is two different scenarios. In training, the way that you get people to understand there's room for growth or elevation is you need to role play scenarios or do simulations in a finessed way so nobody feels uncomfortable to say, wow, I thought I knew that. As I just went through that or watched Paul and company do that, I don't do it like that. By the way, in trainings, if you don't do that, some people are like, oh, I already do that, Art. No, you don't. You have to show them there's room for growth. In the keynotes, that's why I haven't do the underlying needs assessment. That's why I will do, what makes the keynote special is I will engage the audience very quickly. not to make them feel uncomfortable, but I also find out I'll do role play scenarios and or play out to show, hey, if you feel like this is what could be happening, what should be happening, gets their minds to open. It's a great question. But not everybody. I will say the younger generation, this Gen Z, they love it.
I love this.
It's more for the millennials and Gen Xers and boomers that are out there now that have been doing it a while, that have been successful in their own way. You have to really get into their mindset to show them there's room for growth. So the younger generation, that they're already there.
Yeah.
It's doing those scenarios, those simulations, and talking them through it. And like you do with your energy level, which is phenomenal. Actually, before I got on this call, I actually said to myself, this is the energy level I'm going to love. By the way, and I appreciate that. Not everybody has that. You have to bring that, as you know, as a speaker, you bring that energy, that passion, that enthusiasm, that conviction that gets people to open up.
I love it. Listen, everybody, we're talking to Paul Bramson. A lot he can unpack today, but the headline, but you should check his work out, his first impressions. Paul, one other question that came to me, Paul, and again, we're on the downward slope of our discussion today, but feel free, if we need more time, bring out other things I didn't ask you. I know we had a good time with Dr. Filling Ramon Ray. So Dr. Pauling Ramon Ray. But talking about the older and younger generation, again, those listening to me, calm down, people. I'm using non-political correct words. Give me some grace. So just calm down, people. But talking about those who are older and those who are younger, Gen whatever.
Yeah.
Are there differences, Paul? And you kind of hinted that the older successful person, been there, done that. They're more mature. They may have learned. But they probably need help with that too. The younger person, 22, 23, she or he is working at a good company, just started, or they're 35. If you understand what I'm trying to ask, can you just touch on that? First impressions, is there any difference between ages?
So absolutely, especially as a speaker, as you can appreciate, Ramon. The biggest thing with the older is, do they look and sound, here comes the R word, relevant? It's all about relevancy. So where there's a struggle is, by the way, the millennials, not an older generation. It happens to be older than Gen Zs.
Oh, and I was confused.
They're in their 40s now. They are in their 40s now. They are. I wouldn't say they're young.
They're older,
They're 40s old, but not a youngster anymore. The relevancy is, like, even before I went on this podcast, I thought, I actually called my board of, I have a personal board of advisors. Hey, is this work?
Yeah.
So it's a relevancy thing with the older and about their first impression they make, whether it, by the way, Instagram, Facebook, we say Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, and even on LinkedIn. It's all about, are the generations as they get older feel relevant? And by the way, their skill sets need to be relevant. Like emotional intelligence is a huge deal, as I mentioned before. The reading a room, they're the ones that really need, and they love this because this came back in the early 2000s and everybody laughed at it, Ramon. Now they're like, wow, we got to take this stuff seriously. So what I'm noticing with the later generations or the older generations is better reading the room, better emotional intelligence, better communication skills.
And that's a summary, by the way, of first impressions. Better reading the room, better communication skills, and
emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. I think if people do that, Paul, I think we'll all be far along. Actually, one more question I do have, and again, feel free to ask. We have time. I'm going to get into an area here. Sometimes I joke and I say, I'm going to get political here. I don't get political. You watch people's eyes freeze, like, where's he going?
I'm good. I'm ready.
And then I just ask them about, what kind of ice cream do you like? But here I'm going to get into a seriously sensitive topic. For me, it's Mrs. Smith's apple pie with Haagen-Dazs. Haagen-Dazs, strawberry ice cream. Not Breyers, no other brand, but
very popular one.
Paul, in this age of sensitivity, and we don't get on politics in this show, I'm happy to do so, but sensitivity of the word DEI bantered around, and as we're talking about this, don't do it, do it, the wars between Musk and Cuban and all these things that I know you're well aware of. Where does that play? If you're, and you can go get political, but I'm teasing here. If you're able to do it, not being political, where the Republicans and Democrats both have to love what you say, unless you don't want to. You get what I'm trying to play here, where it applies to all good people. What's the role of first impressions of how we show up, though, with the black guy from the hood who hates this type of group because of what he's gone through, and the white boy from Kentucky or on the farm, what he grew through, the Spanish guy who came from, you feel what I'm getting at? So
just had this conversation with my trainer in the gym. We love to have robust dialogue.
I like how you worded that. We'll stay in the gym.
And and I want to make sure this is a various. I love the question, and I don't take it as a political. I take it as a human thing.
Thank you. Great.
Oof. Okay, so a couple things here that I'd like the audience to think about. First of all, you need to show up authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there. That means show up who you are.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if you stand for something or
Mm-hmm.
you have a certain platform, understand that it's really important to just be healthy. What does that mean? That means listen to people, become empathetic. You don't have to agree.
I love
And by the way, let them know if you disagree in any conversation. This is not disagreeing with, it's disagreeing about the idea and not the person, that feeling like you're attacking the person. So to me, when the conversation, the communication is happening, you have to deem whether it's going to be appropriate. Excuse me, healthy and appropriate. And what that means is to have that dialogue to say, listen, you have an interesting thought process. I see it differently. Are you open to different or just hearing different? Do you see what I just said? Because there is subject matter, Ramon, which we're not going to get into.
That's right.
That you can't even broach without people getting highly emotional. By the way, this also gets into emotional intelligence where people don't understand how to regulate. They don't understand how to regulate. And that can turn people off, and it can really cause a really bad problem, especially in the business world, because the boundaries are tighter. So hopefully I'm answering your question.
You are. You are.
I want, just understand that, not you, just to the group, please understand that I have not walked in your shoes. You have not walked in my shoes. And I think that's an important aspect to, even if there's a disagreement or you see things slightly differently, that just being empathetic and respectful to the different and the delivery of how you differ. It's that delivery of tone. By the way, because you're in need, this is all also the underlying needs come into play. Like knowing the way you're built, I'm going to have I would try to have a gentle delivery with everyone, certainly with an underlying need. I'll step back from that. Respectful, healthy, and you need to do a temperature check on that conversation. Meaning, hey, by chance, Ramon, if I have a differing opinion, what's the best way to do that with you?
And I'm going to say two scenarios. Respond to this, Paul. I'm going to say two scenarios.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. Those green people always are like this. Don't even get me started. Listen. What's your answer, Paul? And stay in character. What's your answer back? I'm going to do it again, Paul. Ramon, can I talk about why bricks are great?
Oh, let's go sports. Let's go sports.
Okay.
Are you a sports guy?
No, but I can pretend I am. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't have. What's your thing? Give me up.
Just continue. I'm going to roll with you. Just bring it up.
You're in New York. I'm a Red Sox guy, baseball. You might be a Yankees guy. And we might be having don't get me started on the Red Sox, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, don't even listen. Stop, Paul. Listen, I just had a long day. Don't get me started. It's idiots like you that are making the world a worse place because of how you think. But go ahead. What do you want to say?
Okay, so to the audience, all I heard is a need to look good. It's idiots like you.
Yeah.
That's what which, by the way, would get, I know you didn't, I know that we're playing this out.
I just wanted to go to the 10th degree intentionally. Yeah.
That would be I would strongly suggest that you think, not you, the audience.
I got you.
Let's think before we speak about, wow, I can tell that you're really passionate about this, Ramon.
And just.
Yeah, but no, when you're in the heat of things, by the way, throw alcohol out. I mean, I always say in business, it should be easier because our boundaries are tighter.
That's a good point. We got the dollar, we got the weekly check coming in.
There's a risk factor. Socially, there's less risk.
Yeah.
But still risk.
Okay, let me give
What happens is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Good.
To your point, if somebody comes at you like that, I'm going to ask, this is me included, by the way. I would ask you to reflect on what would be a normal reaction for you, and do you need to regulate? I mean, this has to be simultaneous, very quick. with something like that, I would probably laugh it off and say, I can tell you're passionate.
Mm,
I did hear the I word. I'm sure you didn't mean
mm, mm.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Let me
That's
throw one scenario more
yeah,
at you, Paul. And
no,
again, I was probably too exaggerated. That wasn't fair to
no,
you. Let me give this.
it happens.
No,
It
meaning for this.
happens.
Okay, but let me give one more scenario. We're talking about
Yeah,
sports, Red Sox, Yankees,
yeah,
etc. And uh, listen, I'd love to hear your opinion. I think that the Red Sox, it's not a great team based on my experience. I
yeah,
grew up with them, and every time we
yeah.
take the train, in fact, every time we took the train derailed because the Red Sox were on it. But
Yeah.
but I'd love to hear what you think. What do you say to
So
that scenario? Did you hear how was that now, Paul? That kind of
better. I
okay.
didn't hear the I word.
Right. And what would you say now back? What would you change, if anything, based on we're talking with Paul Bramson here? First impressions, how we can talk and just be better people, I think. Paul, now what's your response to me?
So the healthier Paul. So there's a fight side of me that
Mhm.
I need to regulate.
Yeah.
Meaning I would say, I want to learn more about that perspective,
Love
Ramon.
it.
I want to learn a little bit more.
Love it.
Listen, I have a response for you, I promise. But before I do that, I want to guess. So I want to make sure that my response is more like this. This would be a healthy way to
Mhm.
do it. I want to guess. I want to make sure that my response to what you just said is going to resonate. So at least you'll hear me. But I don't know enough about what you said. Tell me more
Oh,
about
I
that.
love that though. You said, tell me more. That already to a
Yeah.
person who's willing to talk, I bet now we're best friends and holding hands and going down the street talking about Red Sox and Yankees. That's a
As
guess.
opposed to the triggered, listen, even for the subject matter, whether it's politics,
Mhm.
whether what's going on in the world,
Mhm.
I think we just need to take a deep breath and be like, let me understand perspective. I don't have to agree with your perspective, but if we're going to have a healthy dialogue, let me understand you. Hopefully that'll allow you to understand me. But it doesn't mean we go like
Mhm.
this. It just means that it was healthy. I'm sure there's people in your life, I would gather,
Mhm.
that you can't have certain healthy dialogues about.
Yes, that's right.
And it's like, and by the way, at our experience level, I'm older than you are, Ramon, but and it's
No
my
doubt.
in my experience level, you look great, by the way. In my experience level, do you ever feel like I don't feel like doing this?
Yeah,
By the
yeah,
way,
absolutely.
in the underlying needs, I do talk about what underlying needs work really well with each other and what don't. And this is true whether it's business or personal. So
Love this.
great question you ask. I
No, Paul,
love this,
I know I
Ramon.
could,
We could
you and
go
I
on
could,
for hours on
we
this.
could. And
This
we're
is
friends.
actually interesting. It's interesting.
We used to have a part two, but Paul Branson, one more time, tell us who you are, websites to go to. This has been such a great conversation. I can't wait to refer you to others. I can't wait to
Please.
amplify you. Really, I
Great.
mean that I get a vibe here. You and I would do well on stage
I love
together,
it.
but get
I
everybody. My
love
name is
it.
Ramon Ray, by the way. This is the Rundown with Ramon. We're talking to Paul Bramson. We've talked the headline is, but I think you all are learning. I know you're learning about first impressions, but Paul, one more time, repeat who you are, who you serve before we get ready to end this episode.
Paul Bramson, keynote speaker. The company also does training. We work with companies of all sizes around the world, elevating skills, sales, leadership, communication. We're all about connecting so we can elevate, so everybody can just be better, whether it's both professionally and personally. PaulBramson.com.
I love it. And Ramon Ray, would you say I'm the kind? No, I like to be. I like
Need
the
to be
like
liked.
the
Need to
like
be
the
liked.
need to be like guy. You can get to know me better at ramonray.com or zoneofgenius.com. This is the Rundown with Ramon.